Guys, so today what I'm going to do is go through a very quick little video on nutrition for muscle building. And as we all have a pyramid, I've decided to set one up myself and kind of talk you through the basics and also what the most important priorities are when it comes to building muscle mass. So we're going to start with the most important at the bottom, and that is total protein intake, and that's on a daily basis. So, whilst you could be eating all the calories in the world, if you're not eating an adequate amount of protein, you're not going to have the building blocks there for building more muscle mass. And so, for most people, anywhere between 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight is going to be enough on a daily basis to make sure you're getting in enough protein for optimal muscle building. Anything below that and you're going to be on the particularly low side. Anything above that, and whilst it's not going to do you any harm in your muscle gaining process, it's not really going to do much more either. So that's a kind of range that science would state is a kind of decent marker to be hitting. The next we have here is total calories. So a lot of people get total calories and total protein the wrong way around, and that they think all they need to do is eat a calorie surplus and train in a certain way and they're going to gain muscle mass. However, if we're eating 6,000 calories a day and none of it's protein, we won't gain a single pound of muscle. So total calories is the next on the list. If you are perhaps an obese individual, you're new to training, there's certainly no reason why you would need to be in a calorie surplus to gain muscle mass. You've got adequate amounts of body fat there that you can use that body fat for the processes of creating energy for building muscle. However, for most people, if you are, say, an intermediate to advanced trainer in a decently healthy-ish body fat level, having total calories set at least maintenance, probably a slight surplus, is going to give you the optimal requirements for gaining muscle tissue. So how many calories should you eat above maintenance? That's going to be dependent upon how many pounds per month you're going to be looking to try and gain. So for a novice individual, you could look to say gain around about 1 to 1.5% of your body weight a month. For more intermediate individuals, you could drop that down to probably 0.75 to 1%. And then for advanced trainers, you're going to be looking at being between 0.25 to 0.5% per month. Something like that. Anywhere around that figure is going to dictate how many calories you should be eating on a weekly basis and on a daily basis. And obviously if you are gaining weight at a slower rate than what that would specify, then you can obviously increase calories up. Or if you're gaining too fast, decrease. So the next two we have are protein timing and protein quality. And I'm going to speak about these both together and a little bit interchangeably. So, whilst we know you certainly don't need to eat 8 times a day to grow and become a bodybuilder, we do know that eating sort of say one meal containing your total protein intake for the day is probably going to be less than optimal in order to make sure you're growing. And that is because we need to be balancing our muscle protein synthesis against our muscle protein breakdown. We need to try and have a net effect over the day of actually having an increased amount of muscle protein growth compared to breaking it down, and the net effect of that is we get bigger. And this means that for most people, spacing out their total protein over 3 to 6 meals is going to be probably the best way of doing this. So, if you want to know how to do that, how much protein you need per meal, figure out how many times a day you're going to eat, and then space that total protein intake over those requirements. But alongside that, we also have protein quality. So you may have heard of complete versus incomplete proteins. And essentially all that means is that a complete protein has what's known as the full amino acid profile. And amino acids are basically just the building blocks of protein. In order for us to stimulate new muscle growth, we need to have the full array of amino acids. So this means that incomplete proteins will not stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And if your protein that you're getting from your diet is coming from mainly incomplete sources, or coming from perhaps, say, carbohydrate-rich sources, things like bagels, you're not going to be getting enough of the essential amino acids, and particularly the amino acid leucine. So leucine is the main driver of stimulating muscle protein synthesis, stimulating muscle growth, and in order to make sure that a meal has enough to maximally hit the leucine, what's known as threshold, you need to be having 0.3 to 0.05 grams per kilogram. So, you know, that means that the sort of protein source that you want to have, you know, as part of your main protein source for that meal, you need to make sure that the amount has that leucine content in order to do that. So it's certainly not as important as total protein, but they are still important if you really want to take full advantage and really maximize your growth. Next we have here is carbohydrates. So whilst you don't have to have carbohydrate in your diet, it's not an essential macronutrient, carbohydrates are what's known as protein sparing. So eating carbohydrates releases a very anabolic hormone, insulin, and that helps prevent the breakdown of muscle protein. And so having carbohydrate spread within your day's intake can certainly help reduce muscle protein breakdown, which can help obviously with that net effect of gaining muscle tissue. Next one we have is fat intake. So fat intake, typically you want to be setting between 0.5 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So you can see there's quite a big range you can be in there. Now, very low fat intakes in a diet are associated with reductions in steroid hormones, notably testosterone. And that's just through the reduction of saturated fat and cholesterol within the diet. So if you have low testosterone levels due to a very low fat diet, it's perhaps not the best environment for growing muscle tissue. So fat intake is certainly one that needs to be paid attention to, but it's not the most important for gaining muscle mass. But also, if you are struggling to eat the amount of calories you need to gain weight, then certainly increasing your fat intake can help you do that in a non-filling way. And then the one at the top I've put is AOB, which usually would stand for any other business, but I'm going to say it stands for any other bullshit, because you'll be told about lots of different supplements and things that you should be taking to maximize your muscle growth, but the reality is there's nothing out there that is that amazing for doing that. The only things that will really have an impact are going to be creatine. So increasing your body's creatine stores through supplementation can certainly help with strength, which can help obviously as a knock-on impact of increasing your training volumes and increasing your muscle mass, and also increases your water storage within the muscle as well, which will help them obviously get bigger and get larger. And then the only other one that you could do is caffeine, as caffeine is a very potent ergogenic aid. It can certainly help with increasing energy levels in your training, push you to hit new personal bests, but obviously without these are completely unimportant. So get the others in place, especially these two, and you're going to be pretty much doing everything you can to gain optimal amounts of muscle mass.